Hello, welcome to Module 7. And it is set up similar to last week. And this will be the last week of your group project. I know you're so disappointed there won't be more. But let's dive in here. We'll look at the overview. And there's, of course, this video. You have the part 1, which is chapter 11, Environmental and Energy Policy, and the videos associated with that. You have part 2, Foreign Policy and Homeland Security, and several videos associated with that. And you have a discussion, and this week it's TED Talk, Why Civilians Suffer More Once a War is Over, by Margaret Bordeaux. And you have Group Project 3, which is your final worksheet, and that's the Policy Summary and Performance Measurement Worksheet, which I'll take more time to go over in this video. Finally, you have your usual reading quiz for chapters 11 and 12. So as you see here, we dive into environmental and energy policy. This is just a list of the conferences. Hit that. And the breakdown of some of the discussions and related content relating to sustainable development. And you have the summary of the chapters. This is just a nice little short history of US environmentalism. You have a list here. This is from the textbook, obviously, about the different amendments and acts and such. And then you have the 7 major modern environmental movement statutes. These really get to know for the exam. So pay more attention to these. You don't have to remember exactly all of these different ones listed previous. But these you should know the differences. And then you have a climate science, what you need to know video. And that one is pretty important. And you have also some of the figures here, which are from the text, which are a few years old. Hopefully we'll get more updated ones from the text soon. We go on to part 2, Foreign Policy and Homeland Security. And this is a nice summary of how the US became a superpower. And these are some 5 major US foreign policy achievements over the last 100 years, or a little bit less. And we have Eisenhower's military-industrial complex speech. That's an important one to watch. Defense spending. This is a few years old. It's 2018, but gives you an idea. It is not from the text. And then some other items from the text, and including things that aren't in the text. Finally, you have the box video here. This is your brain on terrorism. And then we get to the discussion. And this is the same as it's been every week. Make your post. Make sure you're addressing the short essay question, which is briefly describe 3 negative externalities of war affecting civilians using examples from the video presentation. So if you describe 3 or more and use examples or explicitly state examples from the video presentation, you should get 2 points. And don't forget to comment on another student's post before Saturday night to get that extra point. So this is what we're all nervous about. The Policy Summary and Performance Measurement Worksheet. So this is worth 6 points compared to 3 points for the previous assignments. And what this is going to be a summary of your past two worksheets, and then we get into some performance measurement. So what's very important here is to pay attention to the example. Here is the form itself, which you can download and then fill in. But more importantly, take a look at the example here to see what I am looking for. And a very important step in this, like it was last week, is to go back and read any of my comments on your previous worksheet, your previous two worksheets in this case, so that you can make the necessary changes, so that you will have a policy that makes more sense and that you will get a higher grade on, which is the most important thing. So, societal problem, and this again is from the previous worksheet, chronic homelessness in Imperial County, California. Primary stakeholders, we're going back to the first sheet. We have 9 here. So make sure to go through this and see what type of stakeholders I've included. So often we forget the individuals that are, the whole policy is designed to help, in this case, chronic homeless persons, families of chronic homeless persons. You have your county government, and you're basically acting as the county government in this example. So Imperial County Health and Human Services Department and departments, because there's several. You have your municipal police and fire departments in Imperial County. Now we could go out and list all the different municipal police and then the sheriff's department, but you don't need to. You can summarize it here. Imperial County Sheriff Department and jail. Excuse me, I did break out the county because the sheriff department, as in any county, has control over the jail in most cases. So that means they're slightly different in their perspective because they have to house those who are arrested, or they're arrested by municipal police or the sheriff deputies. Imperial County citizens, so the citizens in general, Imperial County businesses and real estate who may have a different perspective on chronic homeless than others. Imperial County hospitals and clinics, because they often get, they have to be first responders, or they get the chronically homeless from first responders and have to deal with them often in the emergency room. And local, state, and national homeless programs, public and private, operating in Imperial County. And you can expand on that. If you know there's a handful of organizations, let's say in San Diego County, that work with the homeless, or whatever your topic is, that will help you gain some points to put a few names of those organizations in. The policy alternative, this is from the second worksheet. Example is Chronic Homeless Outreach Project. I just created that in the acronym just as an example. And the summary, I just want you to describe what are the components. And components could be programs, but components are outputs. What is the product or service being created? And so we have 4 different programs, components implemented by Imperial County, coordinating with other area organizations. And just I put a list, you don't have to go into detail for all of these things: cities, nonprofits, public safety, state organizations, and funded by local government, because that's part of the funding, the government management, and that's county and participating cities, with state and federal grant support. And like I said last time, this should probably be on most all of your summaries, as well as when you talked about funding sources, because that's the reality. You are going to be looking for state and especially federal grants to fund these types of programs. So policy alternative components, again, these are the outputs, not outcomes, outputs, product or service. So day worker program with outreach van is one. Shelter program, temporary and permanent placement. Again, this is modeled after the There's a Better Way program in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Health services program, that's mental and physical health, as well as substance abuse treatment, and job skills and placement program. So there's 4 components, 4 outputs. And you could have several outputs within these, but just to keep it simple, just for this part, the components may be a little more general. Market failures addressed. If you just have one or two, or you didn't go back and look on your first worksheet, excuse me, to see what suggestions I had, you'll be probably graded down. So go back and make sure you have all the applicable market failures. So here we have inequitable market failure. People can't afford the mental health care they need or substance abuse treatment they need. Information failures and negative externalities. You can add others as well to this. Try to get more than less. And public policy instrument implemented, one or more. And you see in this case, we have 4. So government management, when the county is organizing this program, information education and research. That's all of the components are using that. Public-private partnership. And again, don't just list it, say where this is taking place. Public-private partnership, P3 initiatives, most likely for shelter and health services, could also be the job skill placement program. And market mechanisms, chronically homeless incentivized to work rather than panhandle through the day worker program. And you could add 5, you could add subsidies, which in this case are a form of a market mechanism as well. But please note, with 3 or more, we have 9. 1 or more, we have 4. 1 or more, we have 3. That's the key to getting a good grade. So if you do the minimum, and I don't just do whatever number I put into the template. Try to do a bit more if you want to do better. So policy goals, these are the outcomes that are desired, and try to get, I put 1 or more, 2 or 3 for a good grade. So outcome 1, the reduction of the percentage of chronic homeless in Imperial County, California. This can be measured. Outcome 2, the reduction of the percentage of the chronic homeless treated and housed returning to chronic homelessness. So this is the recidivism rate, and this can be measured. You have to think, can something be measured or not? Outcome 3, the reduction of public service calls related to the chronically homeless, police, fire, health, human services, and this can be measured as well. Performance measurement, policy inputs. Again, inputs are the resources going in to produce the output, which is the product or service. So here I say 3 or more, and we have 8, and there could be 100. But to keep it simple, just look at what I've put here. So administrative staff, administrative facility cost of maintenance, you don't have to break it down into this building or that. Social work staff, that's a bit different than just administrative staff. So that shows me you're thinking. You're not going to just be hiring, one type of person. You need other qualified licensed folks. Input 4, healthcare service cost. And that's, if it's going through consulting through the P3, that's going to be separate. Input 5, job skill services, equipment, consulting costs, supplies for the job skills personnel, etc. Input 6, outreach van purchase and maintenance. I just combine those. Input 7, outreach van day worker staff. And input 8, temporary housing facility purchase if necessary, if it's not a P3, equipment and maintenance. So that's optional depending on your plan. Policy outputs, you have several. So chronically homeless person completing successful day worker assignment. I want you to think of something that's measurable. So you have output 1 being 1 unit of an output. Try to phrase it as a unit. So then that tells me something can be measured. Output 2, chronically homeless person successfully housed in temporary housing. Output 3, chronically homeless person successfully completing mental health counseling program. Output 4, chronically homeless person successfully completing substance abuse treatment program. You could also break those down into completing 1 lesson of, but I thought, just for the sake of our own sanity in this assignment, let's say just completing the whole program as 1 output. We don't have to break it down. Output 5, chronically homeless person successfully completing job skills training program. So these are the outputs. And then output 6, chronically homeless person successfully obtaining permanent employment. they through the service here, you have a job, or you could even say I've kept employment over 1 year. There's other ways to do it, but for sake of simplicity, this is fine. Output 7, chronically homeless person successfully obtaining permanent housing. And make sure to go back. Don't put outcomes where these outputs are. Outcomes are more nebulous. They're not as measurable. Efficiency. So this, I want to see that you understand the concepts. It's very basic. Sometimes students try to make this more complicated than it needs to be. So choose an output. In this case, we are looking at output 1, which is chronically homeless person completing successful day work or assignment. So what inputs go into producing that output? And you just list it out like this. So input 1, administrative staff, plus input 2, administrative facility costs and maintenance, plus input 6, outreach van purchase and maintenance, plus input 7, outreach van day worker staff, equals output 1. And that's chronically homeless person completing successful day worker assignment. So obviously this will be a percentage of all these things, but you get the idea. How would one measure if the policy is more efficient based on the above? And this is much simpler. People try to make this, again, complicated. It is not. I just want to know that you get it. Lower the total average cost of providing inputs 1, 2, 6, and 7 that are listed here, associated with producing 1 unit of output 1. So 1 chronically homeless person completing 1 successful day worker assignment. And so you could get that, let's say over a year, all those input costs associated, and you can break down the facility cost to the other programs wherever you like, but we don't have to get that complicated for this assignment. And then divide it by how many successful day worker, how many persons successfully complete 1 day worker assignment. So effectiveness, now we're getting into, are we reaching our goals? Because we could be doing all of this and all of this, all these outputs, and the rate goes up, or it does nothing to address the goals, which are here: reduction of chronic homeless, reduction of recidivism, reduction of public service calls. So now we go back again to the policy goals. Those are your outcomes, not outputs. And how would you measure? And so for each one that we stated 3 in this example, you state the basic how you would measure if it is effective or not. So outcome 1, the per capita percentage of chronic homeless in Imperial County, California would have to be lower while controlling for all other factors influencing the increase or decrease of chronic homelessness in Imperial County, California, and the greater region or nation. This language at the end, it sounds like something at the small print in a contract, but this is basically showing that you would control for other factors. So you can just borrow this language in all of your outcome statements, because you would need and modify it to whatever your policy alternative is and the societal issue. But this shows me you understand that you're not just going to measure something without understanding other factors could be influencing this. Outcome 2, the recidivism rate of the chronically homeless participating in the CHOP program and successfully housed would be lower, so the lower recidivism rate, while controlling for all other factors influencing the increase or decrease of the recidivism rate outside the control of the CHOP program. Outcome 3, the number of public service calls related to the chronically homeless, police, fire, health, and human services, is lower per capita. We say per capita, that's per 1,000, however you want to do it, because an amount could go up over time, but then the population's gone up, but actually the percentage has gone down per capita. So we always have to take that into account. While controlling for all other factors that influence public service calls related to the chronically homeless. I'm not asking you to come up with all of those different factors. That's outside the scope of this assignment, but this tells me you understand that they need to be measured the best you can. So this is due Saturday, 11:59. I put 45. Okay, I always do that just so people go, oh, I need to get it in 45 and don't leave it to the last minute. But it is 11:59. And in Microsoft Word format is preferable. And then again, it's 6 points. So finally, you have the reading quiz for chapters 11 and 12, just like the others. And please, if you would like to ask me any questions about your group work, uh, you can. You can send an email, say, hey, look over what we have. Does this make sense? I'm not going to write it for you, but I can answer some questions. So feel free to do that. You have my email address in Canvas. And best of luck to everyone. And I look forward to seeing you next week, which will be our final week of class.